Thanks and welcome for coming, or welcome. Thank you for coming to What is Good Light? This is the Good Light Group's first event in North America, and we're really excited to share our program with you today. So just a reminder, we're going to be recording. If you have your camera on and you don't want to appear in the video, shoot me an email so we can make sure that we're cutting you out of any of our programming. Ask that you remain muted. We will have a questions period towards the end of the session. But until then, we ask that you just keep your mic off. We're going to start today with some introductions. Just introducing myself for those of you who don't know me. Our two presenters, Marijke and Jan from the Good Light Group. Marijke will be starting off and talking to us about our biological relationship with light. What are the functions within our body that react to light, and how do they work, and why is that important? Following Marijke will be Jan, and he'll talk about how we can bring good light into our lives. We'll follow both of those sessions, which are about 20 minutes each, with some questions to round off the session. Our goal is to have you out of here by 1 p.m. And a recording of this session will be made available on the Good Light Group's website and social media. So thanks again for coming. My name is Cory. I'm your host. I'm currently the chair of the North American Working Group for the Good Light Group. We're working to build membership and programming for the North American market. The science behind good light is well established. But certainly our friends in Europe have a much better understanding and adoption rate of good light. So we're hoping to change that. In my professional life, I'm the president of Reliable Lighting Solutions, where we light the way to healthy and productive spaces. We're based in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And so glad to have you here. Our presenters today are Jan and Marijke. They're the co-founders of the Good Light Group. And very intelligent and kind people, so we're really happy to have them. Our first presenter is Marijke Gordijn. She's PhD, co-founder of the Good Light Group. In addition to working on a variety of research projects, she runs a company called Chrono at Work. This aims to help organizations make the best use of light for their workforce. She's been published in over 30 publications and is currently the president of the SLTBR, which is the Society for Light Treatment and Biorhythms. She's joining us today from the Netherlands. Following Marijke is Jan Denneman, the other co-founder of the Good Light Group. He's the past president of the Global Lighting Association and spent over 20 years at Philips in lighting, much of that in the research and development area. He's joining us from Eindhoven, which is Philips' Forbidden City in Netherlands. So please welcome Marijke and Jan. So Marijke, with that, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you very much, Cory, for this very kind introduction. And welcome, everybody. Nice to see many of you. In this way, the webinar is a bit, it's also possible to see. I'm going to share my my presentation, and just move you out first. So I hope if there are questions, so I hope you see my screen. Always, I had to push the button that I want you to be optimized for videos. It's always check mark. So if you, I hope you see my screen. If there are questions in between where you don't understand anything I'm saying, please ask in between. Otherwise, we can do it at the session at the end. I'm a chronobiologist, and I want to talk to you today about the science of circadian rhythms and the role of light. And so one of the most clear circadian rhythms is the sleep-wake rhythm. Sleep-wake rhythm is a very clear example of a circadian rhythm. I'm going to talk to you later. What is a circadian rhythm? It's a rhythm with a period of approximately 24 hours. That's where the word circadian is coming from. It's from circa dies, approximately 1 day. And over the globe, over the whole world, you see people being awake, being active, being standing in a vertical position for a large part of the day, mainly during the light phase. And then at a certain moment, when the sun gets down, when it's getting dark, or a few hours later, you see people getting relaxed or getting in a horizontal position and starting to sleep. And actually, that's a kind of wave over the whole globe, and it's happening every 24 hours with this period. And that's why I show you this, because the sleep-wake rhythm is one very clear example of a circadian rhythm. When we talk about time and clocks and circadian, you can think of several ways where we measure time. On the one hand, we have the physics. We have the axis, the globe, the world, and the sun, the turning around the sun and turning around its axis. And that gives us a measure of time. It's within 24 hours, the Earth is turning around its axis. And that means we have a kind of time measurement if we look at the sun. The other thing is that, of course, we have clocks. We developed clocks, mechanical clocks, and we can also talk this about social clocks, because we often use this clock to see whether when we want to meet somebody, when you want to attend this webinar, or when you have to catch a train. So we call this a social clock. And actually, you also use this clock often to go to sleep. You look and say, okay, well, it's time to go to bed. And that's actually kind of weird, because for this, we also have this biological clock. And the biological clock is really a number of cells, about 20,000 neurons in your brain. It's somewhere on the axis. If you put your line from your ear to your ear and from your nose to the back of your head, actually on that crossing, there is a nucleus, a group of cells, which we call the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and that's actually a pacemaker. And here on the right, you see a slice under a microscope, and you really see from the colored cells that this is your biological clock. This is where cells are ticking, and within each cell, there is a rhythm produced. And I want to show you that in some very nice videos from colleagues. Here on the left, when I push it, you see the activity of different neurons in a petri dish. Oh. So, and you see activity of all these cells, and below you see that this cell where we are looking at has a rhythm of approximately 24 hours. It's active within 1 day, and then it goes down within the same day. But what you also see is that the different cells are not synchronous. They have a different period, a bit different activity pattern, but they all have a rhythm of approximately 24 hours. But only if they are connected in a slice. And now here on the right hand, you see this nucleus, this group of cells in the brain. And what you here see is the ticking of your biological clock. And this ticking that tells your body what time it is. It's an internal process telling your body the time of its endogenous clock. Well, this field where we searched for how this is organized and what the mechanism is and what the importance is, this field is already known for quite a while, but it received the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine 4 years ago. And that's really a remarkable moment, I think. It were 3 American scientists who found much more about this cellular process that is behind the ticking of this clock. And I think that by this discovery, this discovery of the molecular mechanism of the clock, and getting this Nobel Prize, this field is getting more and more attention, and we are going to use it both in our everyday life, but also in medicine. So what did they discover? And I'm not going into details. I want to be very simple. We all know probably that within a cell, we have genes, we have genetic information, And these genes, via a messenger, produce a substance which we call a protein. That's what genes do. They produce a protein. And the simple thing is that for a biological, this protein that feeds back on its own production. So it inhibits actually the activity of this gene. So if there's a lot of protein, it inhibits its own production, and there's going to be less and less and less and less until there's so little protein that the inhibition fails, and there's going to produce more genes, more proteins. And this process, this cycle actually, that by some reason, the cycle of this protein has a rhythm of approximately 24 hours. So that's really the molecular basics within each cell in our body that is able to produce a rhythm of approximately 24 hours. Now, this is a very simple scheme. It is a bit more complex. Here you see that there's within the cell many more genes and many more proteins, but actually the whole idea is the same as I showed you in the previous slide, and it's producing all kinds of proteins in a cyclic manner. But then there is one thing that is there in this slide, and that is the light. Light is also received by the cell, by proteins within this cell, and light is able to correct the phase of this rhythm. So it's the turning wheel on your watch where you can turn to adapt the time a bit, to phase advance or phase delay it or speed it up a little bit. And that's actually what light is doing. Light is the external Zeitgeber, as we call it, with a German word that's internationally used to correct the phase of the clock. If you do not have this Zeitgeber, if you are not exposed to the regular 24-hour light-dark cycle, and that's what you see here from very early experiments in Germany from Professor Aschoff and Dr. Wever in a time isolation facility where they housed people without the knowledge of the external light-dark cycle. And then this is what's happening. Here you see 30 days, a little bit more than 30 days beneath each other. And the blue one is activity and the red one is sleep. This is a 1 day. And here the door is still open. This door is open. There are time cues. There's a watch. The people living here, they know what time it is. And you see that every day they start waking and they start being active at approximately the same time. And they start sleep at approximately the same time and they sleep. So this period of this sleep-wake rhythm here has exactly a rhythm of 24 hours. But then the doors are closed, the clocks are gone, there's no information, no time cues from the natural light-dark cycle left anymore. They're completely on their own. And then you see that there is still a rhythm, but they start their activity every day a little bit later, and they start going to bed every day a little bit later. And in this case, this particular individual, what you see here is that if there are no time cues, if there's a constant environment, the rhythm has, in this case, a period of approximately 26 hours. So this own biological clock, these cells tell the body what time of day it is, but it's with a 26-hour clock. And only when the time cues get back, when there's a regular 24-hour light-dark cycle again, you see that the rhythms are synchronized with the Earth rotation again. So that's what's happening if we do not have exposure to the daily light-dark cycle. And that's what we call circadian rhythms. That's why we call them circadian. It's approximately a day. It's not exactly 1 day. So the biological system, our biological clock, in most cases is not that exact to 24 hours. So without light, you could say it is biological darkness. And in that case, the biological clock will free run. That's how we call it, what you just saw. There's a free running rhythm. That also means that various rhythms in our body will desynchronize. We have many more rhythms in the liver, in your kidneys, in your heart, they're all rhythms and they will desynchronize. They will not be correctly synchronized anymore. It's also the case that sleep-wake rhythm will deviate from the outside 24-hour light-dark cycle. And they will run out of phase with your social clock. So if you make an appointment, it might be in your biological night. And that has repercussions both on your sleep quality and on your daytime functioning. You will be sleepy during strange times of the day, And your sleep quality if you go to bed is bad if you do not sleep in your biological night. And this is what we call chronal disruption. It is the desynchronization of internal rhythms and rhythms with the outside world. And we know that both on the short term and on the long term, there are clear health effects, detrimental health effects, and worsening of mood and risks for really getting a disease. So how is this working? This light needs to enter the eye. And we know, you all know, that light that's entering the eye has a visual role. You can see pictures, you can see colors, and these are the routes to the brain for the visual experience. But we now also know that there are particular cells here in the eye that transport the light information to other areas of the brain, of mood, of performance, and also of the rhythm of melatonin, the hormone of darkness, and also to the areas where the sleep-wake regulation takes place. So your biological clock gives your body a time structure, and that means you are prepared for actions. It sets the time for sleeping. It tells you when it's time for waking up, or when to start eating, or when to best perform. And light at the eye is needed to synchronize our clock. But it also makes us feel more alert and less sleepy because it affects those brain areas. And we all know that if we sit in a dark room, for instance, during a meeting during the day, that we feel more sleepy than when we are exposed to bright sunlight, for instance. It also affects our sleep quality. If we are exposed to more light during the day, we sleep better at night, and it improves our mood. Light therapy is also a clear, effective treatment, for instance, for winter depression or other depression. And what I just told you, this light enters the eye. Here you see an eye, and here you see the retina of the eye. And you probably all know this area where there are rods and cones, and this is used for vision. But we know since about 22 years now that in another layer there's a particular cell here that's also sensitive to light. And that actually contains a protein called melanopsin. And melanopsin is sensitive to light with a wavelength of 480 nanometer. And that's why this light, this wavelength of light is so effective. Why this is happening? Send the information to brain areas involved in sleep, alertness, mood, and performance. So if we measure light, we should not only measure light for the visual function, but also for non-visual functions. And that is why the CIE and scientists, they published a paper, a standard paper of how to measure the intensity of light. If you have a LED light here with the spectrum, how to measure this, how to distinguish its effect on the rods, on the medium cones, on the long cones, on the short cones, and on these melanopsin cells. And we call that, if you want to measure this effect, it's measuring light in alpha opics, in scotopic, M-conopic, and also in a melanopic lux. And in the CIE, this value is normalized to daylight, to the 6500 Kelvin daylight constant. And that's why we call intensity in this area a melanopic lux in equivalent daylight illuminance. And if you want to measure more also the non-visual effects, you should pay attention to the different spectra of the light. And this is maybe a little bit a complex picture, but it's just only to show you, you probably all know that the top figure here gives you a spectrum of a fluorescent tube with only a few spikes at a wavelength of 600, 550, 450 nanometer. Here you see a white LED with about 4000 Kelvin, same approximately as this fluorescent, also 4000 Kelvin as a color temperature. And here you see high melanopic LED, especially developed because here there's a clear peak in this 480 nanometer. But our eyes see the photopic intensity also as approximately 4000 Kelvin. Also, the intensity, the normal photopic lux, in this case is 300 lux in all cases. So we have three light sources with white light, a cool white light with approximately 4000 Kelvin at the same intensity, 300 lux. But what you see here in blue is 169 equivalent daylight illuminance for melanopic lux. this light source 190 and this one 274. So with the same photopic intensity and the same color temperature, you can get a very different effect on the melanopsin cells, and so a very different effect on sleep and the biological clock. So color temperature and photopic lux are units for visual function, but the spectrum and melanopic lux tell you something about the non-visual effects. And a similar color temperature and the same photopic lux may derive from different spectral characteristics of light, and they may have a very different effect on alertness, sleep, and the biological clock. Lastly, I see my time is up. The effects of light are also dependent from the time of day. And if you give light in the early morning, you speed up your clock. If you give light in the evening, you slow it down, you delay the clock. And light during the night or during the day, during the night, it disturbs your clock, your hormone of darkness. And light during the day enhances, for instance, the nocturnal hormone of darkness. So it's not only the spectral characteristics, but also the time of day that depend what the effect on the biological clock is. There are clearly health consequences of chronodisruption, for instance, on mood disorders, on a metabolic syndrome, a higher risk for type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disorder. So on the long term, desynchronized rhythm chronodisruption is really a big health risk. So a good light design is more than what the eye can see. If you develop a light design for a building, for an office, for your home, think that that good light is the right light at the right time, with the correct intensity, with the correct spectral characteristic, and also, of course, what you probably always pay attention to, it should be comfortable light. And if you have a home office, realize that during the day you need much higher white light intensities, while in the evening you must be able to dim the light to more comfortable, less blue light, less short wavelength light. This will prevent chronodisruption, it will improve your sleep, and it will optimize health and well-being. And that's why we say, let's start a good light movement to bring good light to the people. And that's also why I give a lot of time, efforts in bringing this information to society, to the public, to improve our lifestyle. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marijke. Great to see from a researcher's perspective the depth of our knowledge in our biological relationship with light. So, Jan, now that we know the biological need for light, can you tell us what we can do about it?
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah, I'll start. Thank you, Marijke, for a very interesting presentation, giving a lot of scientific background to good light. And also all that scientific background is the reason that we both took the initiative to start a good light group. And so this scientific knowledge only makes sense and becomes a value to the world if it's used and applied. And that's the reasons that we started the group, the Good Light Group. And I want to give you guys a little information about the backgrounds of the group and why we did so. Now I hope that I can move. Yeah, we all have the experience that if you are outside during the weekend or on a vacation, it can be a summer vacation or a winter vacation, that you start feeling well after a while. That you are becoming more happy, you sleep better and so on. And that is not for nothing, because if we are outdoors a lot, that's our natural habitat, our natural environment. So here you see a few pictures of the outside world. The first picture is a moonlit night. and the rest are during daytime. And to give you an impression what the light intensity is in those spots, at the moonlit night, the light level is 1 lux. The cloudy night, cloudy day, is 5,000 lux. And partly sunny and sunny day, the light levels go up to 20,000 to even 100,000 lux. And that is the habitat, the environment where we evolved as Homo sapiens, as human beings. But in practice, we spend more than 90% of our time indoor. And indoor, we talk about quite some different light levels, somewhere between 10 and 500 lux. And that is usually good enough to see, and also for safety. So for all visual functions, for safety, and also to make rooms a little bit attractive. But it is not good enough to trigger your biological clock, to let light work as the Zeitgeber, like Marijke said, to synchronize the personal biological clock we all have. So this is the issue. And let me take one step back. Since the turn of the century, there have been 3 lighting breakthroughs. And 2 of us, we all know very well. The first one was the introduction of LEDs. LED is already an old technology. 50 years ago, the first LEDs were made, were produced. But since 2000, 2005, LED, light emitting diodes, is completely taking over the lighting functions all over the world. So that was the first real breakthrough of the industry. The second one is that since LEDs are small electronic devices, it's easy to include them into control systems. So intelligent lighting systems. So you can play a lot with LED. You can put connectors to it, you can easily dim them, you can vary colors and so on. So those are 2 of the 3 breakthroughs that are really being implemented today in a big scale. But there's a third one, that was the one where Marijke spoke about. The fact that early this century, around 2004, it was discovered that in the human eye there were other cells, additional cells, not only for vision, but that also had an influence on the clock, on the mood, on the performance, on the melatonin development in your blood over a day. And I think that is the most important breakthrough of lighting, and also the least used breakthrough. So the third breakthrough is the discovery of the IPRGCs, the intrinsic photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, or simply call it spheres. In the row, you have rods and cones, we all know that, they are for vision, and we also have spheres, they are for the clock. And the second discovery was that if you trigger those IPRGCs in the right way, with a lot of light during daytime and a lot of darkness at night, that has a major influence on our health and well-being. And Marijke has given quite a few examples of that. And the irony is that we, modern mankind, we spend more than 90% of our lives in biological darkness. And we are not using that third breakthrough, that third invention in the lighting world. And that was the reason for us to start the Good Light Group. Now you can ask, the question is, what is good light? Now let me first tell a little bit, one slide more about the Good Light Group. The Good Light Group is a non-profit organization, an NGO, if you want to call it in that way, and we have a global scope. And within the organization, we have participants and partners. That can be companies, universities, organizations, or specialists, scientists. And the objective of the group is that we create awareness of the benefits of good light for people. That we promote collaborations and promote the knowledge development on good light. And actually what we want to do is we want to start a good light movement to bring attractive and sustainable good light into buildings and to people, and letting users experience the benefits of good light. And then the question comes, these are the participants that we have so far, 32. So it's a wide mix of lighting manufacturers, lighting designers, people that are specialized in sleep, people that work with daylight access to buildings, which is also a brilliant solution, color specialists, so it's universities, and we are really hoping that also we get many more participants signing up in the Americas, in Canada, North America, through the working group we have. So then, what is good light? We define good light as natural daylight or electric light with the beneficial effects on the brain and body as daylight. So it's daylight or electric light with comparable effects. And what does that bring then, if we would have them? Marijke already mentioned them, but I repeat them. First of all, it revitalizes us. It makes us sleep better. The quality of sleep goes up if your body clock is in line, in tune with the social time, with the time you go to bed normally. The second thing is that during daytime, because of good sleep, basically, you feel more energized, more concentrated, alert. You also feel more comfortable. Your mood is better. And last but not least, good light also ensures that we see well, and that, for example, we develop myopia in a lower amount. So it also can cure the growth of myopia. And I said natural daylight is the best light. If you can spend a couple of hours outdoor, that's the best you can do. And especially in the morning, have a morning walk and a lunchtime walk. Every half hour, is a win for your body and your brain. And play outside, sports, and so on. Children should be at least 2 hours outside every day. And of course, make sure that you protect yourself from sunburn by by avoiding direct sunlight. That's also not needed, because in the shadow outdoors, you easily get to 20,000 lux, and that's more than enough to trigger the biological clock. And if you can't be outdoor enough time every day, then be indoor, close to a window and facing a window. So natural daylight is the best. But if you then are in a situation that you cannot be outside that much and you need to be inside, how should the light be indoor? And basically, we have defined 4 aspects and those aspects are basically mimicking the important aspects of daylight. And those are the 4 aspects. Good light should be attractive, dynamic, optimized, and personal. And I now want to discuss shortly each of those 4 aspects with you. First of all, good light is attractive. That's very important, because if it's not attractive, people basically don't like it and they shut it off or they fly away from it. And so, for example, increase your the brightness in the room. Take care of attractive contrast. Good color rendering is important. Avoid discomfort, for example, by flicker or other temporal artifacts, and avoid audible noise. Limit audible noise. The second aspect is that good light should be dynamic, because daylight, if you go outdoor, light is also always dynamic. The color changes during the day, and also the intensity during the day and where the light is coming from. the direction changes during the day. And we should try to mimic that also indoor as good as possible. So make sure that your lighting system can be dimmed and boosted, and make sure that the distribution of light is attractive. And we have gathered some recommendations, for example, for a 30 years old, we should at least have horizontal light levels during daytime of 1000 lux, in the evening below 100, and at nighttime below 10 lux. And you can see that we also include data for elderly people, and because the transmission for light of the eye system decreases over the years. The third aspect is good light is optimized, and I think this is one of the most important aspects, especially about the spectrum and the tunability of the spectrum. And here we come to the recommendation that during daytime we should have at least 500 melanopic luxes, a MEDI of more than 500 melanopic lux during daytime. And Marijke explained what melanopic luxes are. Those are the bluish luxes. So not every lux counts it. So the spheres, the IPRGCs are more sensitive to the bluish part of the spectrum. So therefore we have defined, or the CIE has defined, the melanoptic equivalent daylight illumination. It should be at least 500 lux. And for an average LED system, the melanopic percentage of the total lux is about 50%. And it can go up to 90%, what Marijke showed for optimized LED systems. So count somewhere between the 50 and the 90%. So if you make sure that you get 1000 lux at eye level during daytime, you are in the right area. And 1000 lux seems a lot vertically measured at the eye, but if you compare it to outside, you really cannot find places outdoor where you don't get 1000 or even 5000 or even up to 10,000 lux every day. So this is the aspect of optimization, and it's important that this recommendation is based on science. Recently, end of last year, there was a scientific study reported with 18 authors that are really specialists in the field, and they gave recommendations for healthy daytime, evening and nighttime indoor light exposure at the eye in the vertical plane. So they also talk about melanoptic EDI and vertical plane. That's important. And they came to a recommendation of a minimum of 250 lux. We have doubled that because if you look at the graph where they base their recommendations on the right side, it's a logarithmic scale. And in order to make sure that you really have all the benefits during daytime, we set 500 lux during daytime. There is a link in the presentation. If you click to there, it goes to a news post on the Good Light website, and there you find the link to the original report as well. And the last aspect, good light also should be personal. Not everybody is the same, and not everybody reacts in the same way to light. So we need to cater for those individual differences. Like people also have different circadian rhythms. You have early people, late sleepers, and so on. You have, of course, the capability of the eye. The age is a very important factor. Individual control is always important because people like that a lot. And you can also think of sensor supported controls. So this gives a short wrap up of what good light is. And one of the first things that the Good Light Group did, is to publish the Good Light Guide. And that guide is available free of charge. So if you go on the website, there is a section about good light, and there you can find links to the Good Light guide. It's also on the website, and you can also get a PDF. So this is an idea about what the Good Light Group is. So we would welcome you to join as a participant or a partner. So if you became interested, so please send us a mail or contact us in other ways, or contact us through Cory, who's leading the North American working group at this stage. And yeah, let me also conclude with the same slide with that Marijke used. Let's start the Good Light movement to bring good light to the people. That's so important because the technology is there. The knowledge is good enough to bring it into practice. And it's an easy way to improve health and well-being of billions of people. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jan and Marijke, for sharing with us. There's quite a lot to digest there. So I imagine we might have some questions from the group. Does anyone have a question? We've got about 15 minutes allotted, so don't be shy. Okay, we have some shy people. So, oh, Ken, I see your camera turned on. Does that mean you have a question you'd like to ask? Just take yourself off of mute.
I found the statistics there varying for the more elderly very interesting, but I also wonder for eyeglasses, we have the option of getting a coating to screen out blue light. Is that something that would be recommended or discouraged from your knowledge?
If I may react on that, and Marijke, please add to that. I think all those filters on reading glasses, for example, they filter relatively low amounts. And if you really want to get good light, I wouldn't really use blue light filters. If for whatever reason you want to use them at night, for example, it's important that you avoid blue light. Like Marijke explained, at night it's important that the melanopic content is decreased. You can do that by indeed putting out glasses with blue filter, or make sure that your computer screen or your phone screen, your smartphone screen, is turned into the yellow status, and avoid blue light as much as possible.
If I may add, I think I completely agree with Jan that the normal prescription glasses, the normal blue filtering there is not that much. It's not that effective in reducing the amounts. But there are these other blue blockers where you really have the orange glasses, the blue blockers. And if you want to use them in the evening, that's fine. But you need the blue light from screens from the outside world during the day. So do not protect yourself from the blue light during daytime. And you can use blue blockers in the evening, but it's even more easy to just turn down the intensity. If you lower the whole intensity, not only from your screens, but from the environment, from the LEDs, from other light sources as well, all the light that's entering your eye. If you reduce it, that's even maybe more simple and better than filtering out a particular part.
Thank you.
I'll just jump in on that as well. Can the society that regulates eye doctors or ophthalmologists in Canada is currently said there's no evidence to support that the blue light lenses that are on the market today or have any beneficial effect. They don't prevent from damage. CBC did a story that we'll share along with this webinar, just for reference.
The application I'm asking about is due to someone who's had more than one concussion and seems more sensitive, at least while they're in recovery from concussion, more sensitive to the blue light. And but
Yeah.
that's a unique
with these
individual
kind of
situation.
brain traumas, you more often are more sensitive, more vulnerable to triggers anyway. So light may also be a trigger then that causes problems. On the other hand, there are also clear indications that light therapy, improving the light in the environment, is helpful in treating brain trauma after a trauma injury, brain injury. So yeah, I think that's very individual. I think also there the personalized thing is very important. But I would recommend to try not to filter out all the blue light during the whole day.
Good to know. Good to know.
All right. Thanks, Ken.
I got a question. So I just noticed, so you guys are in Netherlands. There is 8 hours difference, right, between us right now at the moment. So when we are designing, we are always taking into consideration the ambience, the building. Say a hotel, if you would have to travel to Canada, the hotel, the lighting probably would have to be more accommodating for travelers if they are coming from different parts of the world. Is there a way that the lighting can help, and how long does it take to adjust the jet lag? If I go to Europe, I think it's also personal, right? Some people take 1 day, 2 days to adjust to that lighting. How the lighting in hotels or even for ourselves can help on this, like to adjust on the jet lagging.
Yeah, sure. It's a very, very nice question. Very, very true indeed. So the real jet lag programs, to prevent even jet lag problems, you should start with light therapy and darkness at the appropriate time, even before your travel. Then you really speed up. If you do that before you start traveling, you can already adapt your clock a bit, and the adaptation afterwards is much less. And then, of course, it's also very personal. It depends on how many time zones you traveled, where your endogenous clock is, what the exact time scheme should be. But it's not that difficult to, with a few questions of what your normal regular sleep time is, how many time zones you traveled, and how much you want to shift, what light design you need to improve to speed up the adaptation. And yeah, the common sense idea is that it takes approximately 1 hour every day. But if you completely shift and you have exactly the correct timing, you can speed that up a bit. But to be fully entrained for 8 hours, it might take almost a week to be fully adapted.
Mm-hmm. What my personal experience is when traveling to United States or to Canada is if you travel that side, be as long as possible outdoor at your first, definitely at the day of travel. If, for example, if we from Europe travel to New York, you usually arrive around noon or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and stay as long as possible outdoor that day, because that helps me at least the best to adjust to the time zone. So it's much better than the lights in hotels, because even if the light in a hotel is bright, I guess it's not melanopic effective. So it's still darkness for your body. So be outside. So and therefore it's easier in the summertime, because in the summertime it's light until 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. In the wintertime, of course, you have only a short period to take advantage of natural daylight.
But indeed, Jan, that fits, because that's actually endogenously your biological evening. So you should expose yourself there to light to delay your clock as speedy as possible. But if we travel from Calgary, I've been in Calgary some years ago, and then you travel overnight, and when you enter the Netherlands, we arrive here early in the morning for the Netherlands time, but it's actually our evening for the biological clock. So if you expose yourself there, you are exactly at the wrong time. So if you travel from Calgary to the Netherlands, and you arrive here in the early morning, you should protect yourself with sunglasses from the light to speed up.
Great. Shail, I saw that you unmuted yourself. Have you got a question?
I do, yeah. I guess my question mainly is, since we know relative to outside, all of our spaces like indoors are so underlit, and yet we know about it. I guess the question is just, why are all of our buildings so dark?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question, Shail. Yeah. I think there's a lot of lack of knowledge. That's the first thing. And lighting has always been designed to be only focused on vision and on creating an atmosphere and to create safety in buildings. Say in the 20th century, that was common practice, and there was also no knowledge about all these additional effects of light. And so that only was really scientifically proved earlier this, the first decade of this century. So it's relatively new stuff. And I think all the people that are active in the field, being lighting designers, architects, and even lighting companies, they are not so good aware of these additional benefits of light. If you would crank up the light level, it's not needed to crank them up to the light levels that are outdoor. That's even impossible. But make sure that you get to those 500 melanopic luxes vertically as eye. If you realize that into buildings, I'm sure that people will benefit and they don't want without it anymore. That's one of the things we did this year as group. We gave people the possibility to experience good light for 30 days in their office. It could be an office space at work, but also could be at the home office space, which of course was common practice in the world the first part of this year. And all of them report positively about that experience. And all of them say, we don't want to go back to the dark situation we were working in before. You can read a few of those stories on our website. There's a certain section about 30 days experience. And that's the best you can do. Create for yourself such a 30 days experience. And you feel for yourself what it really does to your body and to your sleep quality and to your energy level during daytime.
You can just add on to that we've been deploying systems that meet the requirements of the Good Light Guide on a 30-day trial. And so far, everyone that's tried it has bought the system because like they say, they don't want to go back to what they had before. We can talk a lot about the benefits of light, but until you actually experience it, it's really something else. Thanks for your question, Shail. We've got about 5 minutes left. I think that's time for one more question. Does anybody got a burning question? Roberta, I think I actually cut you off when Shail asked his. Did you have a follow-up?
No, I'm good. Thank you. Oops,
Okay.
my camera was moved. No, I'm good. Thank you.
I'd like to jump in quickly on what's a good strategy for us to say educate our clients or people around us in this situation. I mean, I'm an electrician on a small electrical company, and lighting takes a back seat all the time, right? People like flooring, and they like their paint, and they like the pretty things, but they're not taking into consideration. Do you guys have any strategies to help educate people around us for good light?
Yeah, that's very good. Good point. That's what we are talking about with the Good Light Group all the time. How can we bring this message? So there are many societies. So I'm president of the SLTBR. That's a group of clinicians and scientists, and we tell each other what it does, how good it is, etc. But we do not really bring it so well to the people. There are also many other societies and companies trying it, and I think the Good Light Group is really trying to do the opposite, trying to educate society about this. Any ideas in this we welcome. We have thought about several issues about a nice citizen science project, or there is now a book. One of our scientific partners in the Good Light group published a book. It's Enlighten Your Clock. It's in English. It's free download. It's a cartoon. It's a very nice cartoon book, so very easy to read. And it's now translated in 20 languages. And that will be launched next week. So I think more and more scientists and people who have the knowledge try to make the step of how to bring this to the public, and we welcome every idea. But I think the Good Light group, the Good Light Guide, is one first step. We want to develop a Good Light Guide separated for consumers and technicians, so that's our next step. But everything is volunteer work in free time. So, but yeah, I completely agree that that's necessary.
Thank you. Yeah, Jessica had a great idea here in the chat that I could certainly take for sure and take steps at it. Anyways, thank you guys.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for their questions. Just a reminder, we'll make this recording available for you. So if you do want to share it on your social media, you can do so. I recommend following the Good Light group. They're on LinkedIn, perhaps Facebook, but definitely Instagram. They're posting a ton of good content all the time. So very easy to reshare that content out to your network. Over the next weeks, we'll, well, like Marijke said, we've got, there's the children's book or the art cartoon book that's being published. There's the Good Light Guide as well. So yeah, I promise to get you all out of here by 1, and that's a minute to go. So again, I want to thank you all for taking the time to spend with us today. We'll be hosting more events, so if it's okay, we'll distribute you a copy of this event, the recording of this event, so you can review it later. We'll also keep you posted of future events. Yeah.
Are we able to get copies of the slides in the presentation? Because there's a lot of information. It might be nice to go through and review it as well.
Good question. Jan, Marijke, I know there's some proprietary stuff in there.
In my slides, so I think the sharing the movie is fine. I could share maybe a separate PDF for viewing, and then there is you can watch it back in the recordings indeed. Maybe I can add one thing more that we might forgot. There is the Delighted Talks on the 3rd of November. These are 2 talks organized by the Good Light Group in collaboration with the Daylight Academy, the SLTBR, Luger Research, and the IALD. And these are also 2 very nice talks of 2 scientists. And one of them is talking about this comic book, for instance, and about daylight saving time and how to survive the dark winter. So the information is also on the website, and it's also free webinars. So if you are interested in more of this kind of knowledge, you can find it there.
So, thanks again, everyone. Take care.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.